Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today we're going to be talking about Donald Trump versus Joe Biden in the 2020 presidential election. So I noticed that I haven't made a video about this in a while, generally because I'm trying to stay away from doing a Bernie Trump, Biden Trump scenario in almost all of my videos. And I realized that since I've been avoiding the topic a lot, I haven't made a video in a while. And since Joe Biden is expected to announce his presidential campaign tomorrow, I decided that, in spirit of that we were going to do a video of Donald Trump and Joe Biden. So a lot of you have been asking me what map I use, and this is not the 270 map, although some of the colors may seem very familiar. I am using yet another political map simulator, so YAPMS.com. So that's the website I'm using right now. I don't think I can show it to you right now. I'm on the website, but I can't show you the link because the way my screen recorder is set up, that it's stuck in this section of the screen. But it's YAPMS.com, yet another political map simulator. And it's a really useful website. There are so many things on it. If you're looking at the maps, they have the United States. They have everything. I mean, they have Democratic primaries. It's absolutely insane. And it's not just particular to the U.S. They have Germany, Canada, the United Kingdom, Europe, the world, and then one for the mock election Discord. The LTE Discord, and the link right now in the description I don't think is working, but that's besides the point. Today we're going to be focusing purely on a Biden and Trump scenario. Now, first of all, Biden is definitely one of the stronger Democratic candidates. There's a reason why he's polling first nationwide. Not so much in some early states. I've seen him lack in Iowa, definitely lacking in northern states like New Hampshire, picking it back up in South Carolina, and then, tying around in Nevada along with Iowa. They both are about a tie for Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, a statistical tie. But those are the four early states that a lot of people in the mainstream media love to focus on, because nobody really cares about how a Nebraska primary goes or caucus goes if all these other states are building up momentum for a certain candidate. So it's not saying that the candidates it's not saying that the states later on after these early states are not super important, because states like California, Texas, New York definitely have a major impact on how this primary turns out. But these states really just set the tone and eliminates a lot of early candidates. All these candidates that are polling 1-2% are not going to get 5-10% of the primaries. In the early primaries like New Hampshire or the early caucus like in Iowa, that is not going to happen for them. They're going to be eliminated completely. We're going to focus on back to the Donald Trump and Joe Biden prediction. So we'll start off with all of the safe Republican states. We know most of these states are going to be safe Republican, as in most of these states, referring to the ones that I am filling in now. Indiana and Missouri have had a lot of discussion in the past about them possibly going to the Democratic Party. If you look at 2008, that was the last time it could have actually gone for the Democratic Party. Kansas has been thrown in there for discussion. Utah has been thrown in there. I don't see any of these states really getting closer. Actually, no. I do see them getting a little bit closer. I do not see them swinging all the way over to the Democratic side or at all becoming competitive states. We live in a very divisive era, and these states are not going to be flipping anytime soon unless something drastic happens. Even with someone like Pete Buttigieg on the Democratic side, Indiana's still going to be a Republican state unless something drastic happens to the president in terms of scandals, in terms of Vice President Mike Pence. Who knows? But as of right now, it just seems that these states are going to stay in the Republican column. So I believe I've filled in all the safe Republican states. Again, you can argue some of these going into the likely column, but it doesn't really matter. They're going to be Republican anyway. Might as well fill them in a solid red. And if we're looking at some of the regular Democratic states, again, states like Washington and Oregon definitely have been discussed before as states that possibly could go into the likely column, especially with Hillary Clinton's numbers dwindling in those states compared to Obama and Kerry and Gore. Actually, no, Gore and Kerry had very close races on the West Coast, surprisingly. But looking at the Obama numbers compared to Hillary Clinton numbers, not that much of a quote-unquote drastic decrease, but still a decrease, so it has spurred some discussion about it. Going up to the Northeast, we already know that a lot of these states are going to be safe, including the District of Columbia, New York included. One thing that is interesting is that a lot of Republicans are stereotyped to be from the South, even though that's typically not true, and a lot of Democrats are typically stereotyped as from the West. In fact, I don't believe there's been a single Democratic president from California, which is really interesting. But let's keep going and looking at our current electoral map. So these are all the quote-unquote safe states. These are the states that the media will always call and will always coincide with one another. Fox News, MSNBC, CNN will always agree that these are the quote-unquote safe states. Maybe there could be, discussion about some of these other states being in the likely column, but generally these are the states that are always allocated to the Democratic Party, regardless of the candidate. 182 electoral votes for the Democrats, 125 for the Republicans, because I have to subtract Nebraska's 2nd district, and that's pretty much how it is. 2016 was interesting because states like Utah became toss-up states because of third-party candidates, but this one-on-one scenario is assuming that Donald Trump and Joe Biden are the only two quote-unquote major candidates that actually have ads out and are running against one another, and it's just a good way about showing a one-on-one candidate instead of throwing in another throwing in another candidate to, I guess, just change up the electoral map. So for the Democratic Party, a lot of things have been shifting in favor of them recently. States like Virginia and New Mexico can be argued as safe states. I'm going to leave them in the likely column for right now. Even with someone like Joe Biden, who I do think is a very strong candidate, it's probably not going to go in the safe column. Virginia is still going to have those Republican areas, and even though it has had this quote-unquote major shift in favor of the Democrats since the 2016 election, and it was a Democratic state in 2016 and 2012 and 2008, but looking at the state of Virginia, yes, it has had a shift in favor of the Democratic Party, but I do not think it's enough to make it a safe state. Same thing goes for the state of New Mexico. That state itself, yes, has had a major shift in favor of the Democratic Party. History always directs a state into the Democratic side, but it's not so much making it a safe state. Colorado also joins a bunch in the likely states. The state of Colorado itself has definitely moved further to the left. And in terms of the governor race, Senate elections, which one is actually coming up in 2020, I believe it is Senator Cory Gardner, if I'm not mistaken. I believe he was elected in 2014 over Udall. I could be mistaken, but I believe that's how it went down. But Colorado has a Senate election up. If we're just looking at the pure numbers, Colorado should be a likely Democratic state, and it is a likely Democratic state. It's not based off the numbers and then something else is happening. No, it pretty much agrees every single time. The state of Texas, which is down in the south, that one has a lot of discussion because of candidates like Beto O'Rourke, people that were able to make it closer, but not so much win in that state particularly. So Texas right now is going to be a likely Republican state. Looking at the state of Texas, Joe Biden is probably not that candidate to come close in the state of Texas. I do think, first of all, likely ranges from 6 to 15% on my map. So likely could be closer to the 6-7 percentage mark for Donald Trump. I do think he's going to lose a little bit of voters, but it's probably not going to be enough to move it into the lean column. That'll probably happen with a very specialized candidate for the state of Texas, i.e. Beto O'Rourke. And looking at these other top candidates like Harris, Buttigieg, Sanders, they're probably not going to make this race closer either. I think it is interesting how Buttigieg, I don't know if any of you know, most of you probably know by now, but Buttigieg has inched up to 4th place nationwide, which is absolutely insane. But that's not the discussion of this video. Looking at some other Republican states, states include Ohio, Iowa, Arizona, and Georgia, North Carolina. These states are typically Republican states, or have been since 2016. Not so much Iowa and Ohio in previous elections, but yes, North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona have generally been Republican states. Looking at these states particularly, you probably will see an increase of minority voters in favor of Joe Biden compared to Hillary Clinton, but it probably will not be enough to flip it. Keep in mind, Joe Biden is still going to be stereotyped as that old white man who wants to run the country, right? Yes, he is closely tied to the Obama administration. That's definitely going to help him a lot more with African Americans compared to Latino voters, but the effect is still the same. He's a Democrat. He's a Democrat that, as of right now, does not seem as scandalous as Hillary Clinton. Again, things like that can change. You saw how quickly people came out against Joe Biden. Things can happen at 2 weeks before the election and change absolutely everything. But looking at those particular states, yes, I do see increased minority turnout and increased minority voters for the Democratic side, but it's not enough to flip these states. North Carolina is going to be a lean state. Georgia is going to be a lean state. The state of Arizona, however, could get closer than lean, but as of right now, I see it in the lean column. Arizona is the only one that's actually proven it can go to the Democratic Party in recent election history since Barack Obama. Barack Obama, yes, won the state of North Carolina in 2008. Yes, a Democrat won the governor election in North Carolina in 2016. But if we're just looking at statewide Senate elections, things that actually have an impact on the nation, not just particular to the state, and presidential elections, the Democratic Party really has only had success in the state of Arizona. But right now, we have 205 electoral votes for the Republican Party or Donald Trump, 209 for the Democratic Party, Joe Biden. Let's focus on some of these northern states. Now, typically I characterize Maine's 2nd district as a Republican district, but as of right now, I'm not so sure of it. Maine's 1st district, I definitely see being safe at this point. Maine in total, I do see being, actually, no, that's not Maine in total. That's Maine's 2nd district. Maine in total, Maine at large, I do see becoming a likely state. As of Maine, right now, looking at Maine's 2nd district, the candidate that I really see prospering there is someone like Bernie Sanders. So right now, I'm going to keep Maine 2nd in the the tilt Republican column, which means that it's not lean, but closer than lean. Moving over to the state of New Hampshire, Joe Biden is probably going to win in that state. That's how it typically goes down. It'll probably be a lean state because Donald Trump is definitely going to campaign there. But the Democratic Party definitely has things to dig up on Donald Trump there. You're referring to what he said in 2017 or things in the past that they may not have employed in 2016. Looking at the Rust Belt, this is an area where Joe Biden is going to excel in: Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Now, that officially makes him the 46th president, referring to Joe Biden, defeating Donald Trump. And that pretty much should be the end of the video. But there's a lot going on in the Rust Belt here. First of all, Joe Biden is from the state of Pennsylvania, born in a pretty small town, maybe not so much now, in Pennsylvania. He's definitely going to be able to appeal to states such as Michigan, such as Wisconsin, Minnesota. Minnesota is already a Democratic state. Wisconsin and Michigan, yes, they were Republican states in 2016, but they're a lot like Indiana. If you look at Indiana in 2016, it was a solid Republican state, but 8 years before, it was a blue state, which is very interesting. That seemed like a very off election, and a lot of data is pointing that Joe Biden is going to win all 4 of these states by greater than 5%, especially Pennsylvania and especially Minnesota, considering that they already either have ties to Joe Biden or they are already Democratic states. And looking at 2018's election data, these other 2 Rust Belt states do not seem like they're going to dwindle away from the Democratic Party. Now, Nebraska's 2nd district, we can expect a Donald Trump victory there. Not many candidates can actually win there. Barack Obama failed to get it in 2012, and Hillary Clinton did not win it in 2016. But Nevada, that's a pretty Democratic state. You can expect that state to actually go back into the lean column. Donald Trump has surprisingly done pretty well there. I believe Biden leads him by only 3% there, so that's pretty interesting. Nevada typically gets close, typically underestimates Democrats, but as of right now, I could still see it being a lean state as it was in 2016. For the Republican Party, they're probably going to carry the remaining 3 states. However, looking at the state of Ohio and Iowa, these states definitely could be lean states, which means that they're no longer likely states. They're moving away from the Republican Party, but it just doesn't seem enough to push it into the Democratic Party. Yes, Joe Biden can campaign here, but the effectiveness, it's just not enough to flip these states. These states have really embedded in them in just recent years to become a Republican state, which is very interesting considering that both of these states were Democratic states back under President Obama. Things can change. This is not set in stone now, but this is just how I see those 2 states as of right now. But now Florida, that is a state that is going to get very, very close. I do not want to call it as of right now. The state of Florida, with enlisting, I believe 1 to 2 million more voters because they are allowing registered felons to vote in general elections. That could really sway the electorate. That's adding a whole lot new voters, especially with races like 2018 that were decided by both the governor and Senate elections, both decided by 0.4% and 0.2% respectively. That's absolutely insane, and any minor change to the electorate really can alter the results there. Florida is a very interesting state because it always comes down to the close elections, but as of right now, the state of Florida, I am not going to call. I know a lot of you get mad at me for not calling a state. If I was going to call it, I would put it in the tilt Republican column. But as of right now, I do not want to touch that state because that state is going to be very, very contested, and a lot is going to change about it coming into 2020. So that wraps up today's video. Thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all tomorrow.